Young George is separated from his family after a terrible plane disaster. The other leave, with baby George being the only one remaining. George spends his life in the jungle until he meets the lovely Ursula. His adventure takes him from the African jungles to the American jungles. Stick around to the end to see how his journey unfolds. Hello and welcome to Comedy Recap. Today we're going to give you a recap of the film George of the Jungle, which is a movie from the adventure comedy genre. An amazing film that has grabbed the attention of adults and children alike. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the movie. You will certainly have a wonderful time. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. The movie starts and we see a baby George who was left in the jungle after a plane crash. People tried to find him, but could not as he was left hanging from a tree hidden in the leaves. We also note that George was not as physically deft, as he kept on hitting trees. Then, the scene changes, and we see a much older George, who, 25 years later, has grown into a man. The narrator gives him a description of being swift and smart, and it seems like George has grown into a fine jungle man. However, soon we learn that his clumsiness remains the same, as he still keeps on hitting trees while swinging, and is knocked out cold as a result. While he drops to the ground unconscious, we see Ursula Stanhope, a San Francisco heiress. She is an explorer who is exploring the jungle, admiring the wildlife. She is making a video so that she keeps a record of her beautiful encounters in the jungle while touring Uganda with the local guide Kwame and a trio of porters. Here, she is joined by her fiancé Lyle Vandegroot and two poachers named Max and Thor, who help Lyle track her down. The group talks about the Mountain of the Apes, to which Kwame informs them about the legend of the White Ape, a supernatural ape who commands the jungle. It is over 7 feet tall with the strength of a lion. Some say he is thirsty for blood. Others say he is searching for his soulmate, who he will never find. Lyle insists on taking Ursula home as quickly as possible the next day, but Ursula rejects the idea. She wants to explore and find the white ape. Later, as they are crossing a bridge, some of the locals that were helping them fall and get injured. When Lyle is sick of the jungle, he takes Ursula away from their camp so that they could find the white ape and leave the jungle. Here they are attacked by a lion. While running away, Lyle falls and hits his head with rocks and thus loses consciousness. Ursula is left stranded and alone. She is cornered by the lion. All hope seems lost. However, George comes out of nowhere and fights with the lion. After successfully defeating it, he drags the lion away. However, suddenly, another lion comes out of the bushes and charges Ursula. But this time Ursula is rescued by George, the king of the jungle. George's clumsiness results in him hitting another tree, which knocks out Ursula. George takes her to his treehouse home and cares for her. When she wakes up, she sees an ape and George in a treehouse serving her breakfast. She is so overwhelmed by the whole scenario that she faints. Later, George introduces her to his 3 animal friends: Ape, a sapient talking gorilla who raised George; Shep, an Asian elephant who acts like George's dog; and Tuki, a Toko toucan. With the help of Shep, the two go out and try to find Ursula's group. In the end, she forgets about her group as she enjoys the company of George. She grows fond of George, even more when he helps a baby monkey. The two later dance together, thus growing even closer. George is smitten by Ursula and tries to woo her. Ursula reciprocates his feelings, and her time with George makes her want to stay with him forever. On the other hand, Lyle and the rest of the group try to find Ursula and the white ape who has kidnapped her. The rest of the group makes fun and mocks Lyle, as they know he must have been scared and ran when the lions attacked. Max and Thor are greedy, and they offer a lot of cash to the locals to help them capture the white ape. Later, they hear Ursula and George laughing together. Lyle confronts them after finding the treehouse with Max and Thor. Ape yells at Shep to run, as Max and Thor prepare to shoot him for his ivory. The sight of a talking ape astounds everyone, so instead of capturing Shep for his ivory, Max and Thor decide to tranquilize and capture Ape. George attempts to stop them, but is shot by Lyle, who mistook his gun for a novelty lighter. Lyle and the poachers are apprehended, and the porters identify Lyle as the shooter. Max and Thor are set free and decide to capture Ape to earn a fortune in Las Vegas. In the meantime, Ursula brings George home to seek medical attention for his wound and to explore the human world in which he belongs. George is quite perplexed by the new world and slowly settles in. The next day, Ursula's friend Betsy comes over and she meets George, who is naked. Ursula covers him as they discuss what to do with George. Betsy accuses her that she is in love with George, and the two decide that they will tell Ursula's father that she does not want to marry Lyle. They laugh as George wears Ursula's clothes, thinking it is a mudflap. They later go out to find him clothes, and George changes into a dashing suit. On the other hand, George's friends over at the jungle are worried about George. Since they are accustomed to living with George, they don't know how to function without him. Ape is running in circles, deeply worried because he saw George getting shot. The scene changes and we are back in the city. While Ursula is at work, even though she asks him to stay in her apartment, George cannot stop himself and explores San Francisco, utilizing his vine swinging skills to save a paraglider from the Bay Bridge. Ursula, who has no desire to marry Lyle, tells her parents the truth, but her overbearing mother Beatrice opposes it. Beatrice takes George aside at a gathering designed to celebrate Ursula's engagement and tells him flatly that she will not let Ursula's engagement break apart, and that she will not allow George to be with her. Max and Thor catch Ape in Africa, and Ape manages to tell Tukey to find George before he passes out. Tukey departs for San Francisco while George returns to the jungle, leaving Ursula alone for the night. Ursula realizes she loves George and goes to find him, comforted by her parents. Whilst Beatrice is disappointed, her father is more supportive. The poachers are duped by Ape into circumnavigating the jungle and returning to the treehouse, where George confronts and fights them. They try to beat him by tickling him during the fight, but George survives and eventually incapacitates them with the help of Ursula and his animal pals. Lyle, on the other hand, appears. The narrator tells that Lyle escaped from prison, joined a cult, and is now an ordained priest. Lyle has the mercenaries he brought with him subdue George and transfer Ursula to the adjacent Ape River, where he has a boat ready to flee while performing a marriage ceremony. The river, on the other hand, is a deadly cascade of rapids that hurls the two into peril. George manages to get away from the mercenaries and executes a great swing to reach Ursula and Lyle, only to fall into a massive tree. He takes Ursula to safety after the tree falls over the river due to the force of the crash. Lyle finds himself in a cave and, believing he is on the boat with Ursula, declares them married. However, when he lights his lighter, he discovers that he has married a gorilla. Ursula moves into George's treehouse after George and Ursula confess their love for one another and marry. They had a son, George Jr., whom they present to the animals from up top Pride Rock sometime later. Meanwhile, Ape relocates to Las Vegas and establishes himself as a well-known stage act, using Max and Thor as props. So that's all the time we had today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to subscribe to Comedy Recap, and do hit the bell icon to remain updated about all our future videos. Till then, see ya.